Hi VC, me again. Back so soon, I know. I'm going to do the Prog Rock Vinyl Tag of 2021, which was set up by Bill at Vinylverse. And he's come up with 20 questions about prog and our record collections, and I've got 20 answers. So let's get straight to it. Question 1, the album that got me into prog. This is easy. 10 years old. Next door neighbour had this on vinyl. I taped it off him and played it to death, and been listening to it ever since. And okay, strictly speaking, perhaps it's not a prog album, but it's definitely got prog elements. It's got, suites of songs like Concerto for a Rainy Day. It's ambitious. It's got hit singles, but it's got longer tracks, deeper cuts, and it set me on my way, looking for more music like this, more music that challenged me. So there you go, out of the blue, ELO. Question 2, an album with 4 songs or less. And I've chosen Inside by Eloy. Came out in 1973, it's their second album, and it's a brilliant album. There you go, there's your proof, just 4 songs. Side 1 is taken up by just one song, Land of Nobody. And this is very much in the vein of, I suppose, a cross between Deep Purple and Pink Floyd. So right up my street. There you go, it's on the Harvest label, just to sort of further its prog credentials. So yeah, pretty much anything by Eloy is fantastic, but these early albums are just something else. And next we have an album on the Vertigo label. Classic label. This is a classic album, Aphrodite's Child, 666. And this album shouldn't need no introduction. I mean, if you're into prog music, even into psychedelic music, you should be aware of this. And if you're not, what have you been doing? You've got to listen to this album. My copy's an original Vertigo pressing, but a French Vertigo pressing, so it has the small swirls on the label. And just a great album. Say no more. Question 4 is a prog album with epic keyboards. And I thought about Rick Wakeman, thought about Keith Emerson, and I thought everyone else would be thinking about them. I'll try something different. And I've gone for an album that's a bit more obscure. It's Zazu, who were a band out of Chicago, I think, in the States, signed to the Wooden Nickel label, same label as Styx, and they share a bit the same DNA as Styx, I think. They've got that pomp, Midwestern sort of sound down to T, but this, if anything, is a lot proggier, and the keyboards on this are off the scale. I mean, they're utterly over the top, and it's all the better for it. If you need any more proof that this is a prog album, there's a 10.5 minute track on side 2 called It's Not a Sonata, but it's close. And that is a good starting point if you want to check out what this album's about. Keyboards are by a guy called John Melnick. And this is thoroughly recommended. Great album. Is this prog? So show an album that perhaps some people will question whether it's prog, I guess. And I've chosen Mental Notes by Split Enz. I guess they're more known for being a sort of quirky new wave pop band, but certainly in 1976, I think it was when this album came out, they were far more experimental. They were most definitely art rock. I would argue they were progressive rock. You know, I can hear mellotrons on here. There are time changes aplenty. There's ambition in spades, and it is a fantastic album. I even think that Tim Finn on this has a bit of a Peter Gabriel quality to his voice. Yeah, I imagine the band's image might put a few people off, but this is such a good album. You owe it to yourself to give that one a listen. Question 6. A prog album from an artist or band out of Germany. Well, already shown you Eloy. I thought about Nectar, because even though they were a British band, they were based in Germany and people always consider them a German band, and they are a great band. But I've gone for this one, which is Faithful Breath and Back on My Hill. And this was quite late to the party. This came out in 1980. And after this album they became a fully fledged heavy metal band, but this is not a heavy metal album. This is a prog album, a sort of symphonic prog album, quite similar to Eloy in a lot of ways. And even though the band looks like a heavy metal band, trust me, this is prog. The whole of side 2 is taken up by a 17-minute track called Judgment Day. That says prog, doesn't it? And this is well worth investigating. If you've only heard their later albums and don't like metal, don't be put off. This is prog. Question 7 is a prog album from an artist or band out of the UK. Sport for choice, of course. UK was the home of prog rock. I thought I'd go for another sort of lesser known act, and that's Asgard and their one and only album In the Realm of Asgard. And this came out on the Threshold label, the Moody Blues label, and it actually sounds a fair bit like the Moody Blues as well. Perhaps a bit rockier, and has a slightly more pomp element to it, in common with some of those bands, you know, those American bands like Zazu and Styx. But again, hugely recommended. Quite difficult to track down now, but great album. Number 8 is a prog album from North or South America. Well, I'm going for North America. Going for USA. And Jasper Wrath and their self-titled album from 1971. This is on the Sunflower label. This is a slightly later reissue, so instead of the usual sort of orangey brown labels I think the originals would have had, this has the black labels. I can't tell you when this was released because Discogs doesn't know when it was released, but I'm guessing that it was a 70s reissue. And it's a really good album. Again, it's got definite hints of Moody Blues in here, and because of the year it came out, there's a little sort of leftovers of psychedelia in here as well. But it's sort of, on the whole, it's folky prog with tons of flute, and comes highly recommended. Question 9, a prog gateway album, one that you could use to introduce someone to the genre. Well, unless someone particularly asked me to introduce them to prog, I'd just let them get on with what they want to listen to. But I think albums that people may hear and discover prog almost accidentally are things like Out of the Blue. They may like some of the longer tracks on that, and like I did, look for something that sort of stretches the normal sort of limits of the pop song. Or perhaps something like War of the Worlds. You know, this was a massive album. I'm sure not everyone who bought it knowing quite what they were letting themselves in for. But you know, this has prog ambitions, certainly. You know, you've got Justin Hayward on here, Chris Thompson, so its prog credentials are, yeah, pretty fully formed. I mean, the artwork is very prog. It's a double album. It's a concept, and yeah, I would imagine a lot of people bought this because of sort of the big chart hit, and ended up delving further into prog after this. And if it wasn't that one, it's probably something like this, Crime of the Century, which has the big hit Dreamer on it. And if people bought this album thinking it's going to be full of lots of 3-minute tracks like that, they'll either have been sorely disappointed, or they'll have revelled in the longer tracks like Rudy and the title track. Great album, and definitely a gateway into prog. And question 10 is an album with Bill Bruford on drums. Well, fantastic drummer, big hero of mine. I've got a little something, just a little extra to show you, which is my signed Bill Bruford photo. There you go, that sets the mood. But obviously he's played with a ton of people and done a lot of stuff off his own back as well. But I thought, why don't I just show you one of my favourite albums that he played on, my favourite King Crimson album, Discipline. Love this album. Can't go wrong. Okay, where are we up to? Question 11, a concept album. You can't move in the prog genre without tripping over concept albums, so this wasn't too difficult, but I've come up with a slightly more obscure one. An Italian prog album by Il Balletto di Bronzo, and it's Is. And this album, the concept is built around a lost mythical Breton city. Can't tell you anymore because I don't speak Italian, but it's a fantastic album. And this is a reissue because the originals are ridiculously expensive if you can find them, but they've done a good job recreating the packaging there, so I'm more than happy with this. Sounds great. What does it sound like? They get compared to ELP, and certainly there's a lot of keyboard action on here, but some kick-ass guitar as well. And it's at times a very dissonant album. It's noisy, it's challenging, but it's quite possibly one of the greatest prog albums ever recorded. So that's no hyperbole, just go and listen to it and you'll agree with me. Number 12, a female prog artist. I thought about Sonia Christina from Curved Air, and then I thought about someone who she's been a very big influence on, someone who I'm a big fan of. That's Lee Cunningham, who up until a few years ago was fronting a band called Person, who were a fantastic sort of prog psych band. Saw them live 3 times. Excellent musicians, great live act. But the star of the show is Lee Cunningham. It was her band. She sings, she plays guitar, she's got a great voice, and she is a fantastic guitar player and great songwriter. So I can definitely recommend Lee Cunningham in Person to you. Number 13, a prog solo album. So someone who's been in a prog band and then released a solo record. And I thought about various people, most of them in Genesis or Yes, admittedly. And then I thought, yeah, this is a great album, which I love. It's Every Which Way by Brian Davison, formerly of The Nice. And this album doesn't get an awful lot of love in prog circles, and I will never understand why, because I think it's a bit special. It's fairly mellow. There's lots of sax on this, so it's quite a jazzy prog album, and it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, Brian Davison, check it out. Question 14, a favourite Roger Dean cover. Again, tough to choose just one. I've seen somebody show Octopus, Gentle Giant album already, and I love that. Relayer is a favourite, particularly as I once saw the original Roger Dean painting that the album sleeve was taken from, and that was quite mind-blowing. But I'm going to go for one again that I haven't seen on the VC yet, and that's Charge, Paladin album, second Paladin album. And I love that. Always love that. Again, it's one of those albums, even if I hated the music, I'd keep it for the sleeve, but the music's great. There you go. Question 15 is a prog album released in 1971. And just by coincidence, it's another one of a Roger Dean cover. And it's Space Hymns by Ramesses. And this is a fairly ridiculous album. I think Ramesses was a plumber or something from Yorkshire. Decided to change his name and become some sort of guru. So there's lots of sort of quasi mystical religious nonsense on here, but it's a good listen, and it has some of the best artwork you'll ever see. Yeah. My copy's on the Spaceship labels. It's a second issue, and what looks like a spaceship is in fact the steeple from some kind of a cathedral. And as I can't see my screen now, I can't tell whether you can see the whole of that, but you get the idea. Pretty impressive sleeve. And I imagine a lot of these ended up taped to walls and in a terrible state, so I'm quite pleased that's not in too bad nick. Okay, number 16, a live prog album. Well, I kind of hummed and hawed over a load of obscurities and bands that perhaps people weren't so familiar with, and then I just went for my favourite live prog album. Been listening to this for donkey's years. I love it. It's Seconds Out by Genesis, which I think was the perfect way for Genesis to, I don't know, cement Phil Collins' place as frontman of the band. There's a lot of material from Trick of the Tail on here, and it's fantastic. Got Chester Thompson on drums, and the drum duel with him and Phil Collins is incredible. And the older tracks, like Supper's Ready, they tackle those and bring them bang up to date, bang up to 1977 anyway. So, love this album. I'm an unapologetic fan of the Phil Collins era of Genesis, particularly this earlier Phil Collins era. Can't go wrong with that one. Number 17, the last prog album I purchased. Well, this one arrived just a few days ago. It's Another Trip to Earth by Gabriel Bondage. And I can't really tell you much about this. Can't even tell you how much I like it yet, because I only listened to it once. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a little bit all over the place. The good bits struck me as really good, and the bits that didn't strike me as really good, I just thought, yeah, I need to come back to that. Some tasty white vinyl. But yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring that one a bit more. And question 18, a prog album released within the last 25 years. Well, this is a band out of Denmark, I think. Yeah, Denmark. It's Airbag, and their album, All Rights Removed. And this was a bit of a impulse buy. When I bought it, I had no idea who they were, but I got this at the time very cheap, and I think the price of this has skyrocketed since. But it's a really good album. Double album. And it reminds me a lot of Pink Floyd. If you know, mourning Pink Floyd no longer being around, this lot might be a good backup for you, because there's lots of really tasteful sort of Dave Gilmour style guitar on here, and great musicianship, good songwriting. Yeah, check it out online. Good album. Number 19 is a prog album with an incredible guitar solo. We're sport for choice, aren't we? And this is prog. There's loads of good guitar solos, great guitar solos. You can't have Comfortably Numb though. You know, that's just become a cliche. Brilliant though it is, you can't have Comfortably Numb. So I have gone with a guitar solo that leaves my jaw on the floor every time I hear it. Even more so when I learnt that the guy recorded it in one take. And the guy I'm talking about is Guthrie Govan, playing for Stephen Wilson on the Hand Cannot Erase album. And there's a track on here called Regret Number 9, which is an incredible track, and would be an incredible track even without the guitar solo, because the keyboard player Adam Holtzman plays possibly the greatest Moog solo I've ever heard in my life on that track. And just when you think the track can't take you anywhere else, Guthrie Govan comes in with a guitar solo, and oh my God, it's incredible. It is an incredible solo. If you haven't heard it, you have to hear it. If you have heard it, you know what I'm talking about. The guy is, I mean, he looks like, the long lost brother of Shaggy off Scooby-Doo, but he plays like a god. He's incredible, an absolutely incredible talent, and he makes it look effortless. And he's not playing for Stephen Wilson anymore, I don't think. Certainly wasn't the last time I saw him live. And got to say, it's a loss. It's a loss. I mean, Stephen Wilson always surrounds himself with brilliant musicians, but the lineup on this album, I think, was, for me, the greatest lineup he had on his solo material. So, great album, and that track, Regret Number 9, has one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard, I think. And final question is a prog album that's at the top of my want list. Well, my want list is just fat and bloated and full of number one wants. Pinning it down to one is difficult, so I'll pin it down to two maybe. I'd like to get Present from Nancy by Super Sister, who are a Dutch band very influenced by the Canterbury scene, and I only have one of their albums at the moment. I'd like to get the rest of them, but Present from Nancy is the one I want to start with. And I also need Matching Mole's Little Red Record, and then my life will be complete for now. So there you go. That is my response to the Prog Vinyl Tag for 2021. Some great questions. Really enjoyed putting this together. Wasn't too difficult to do. Didn't need to do too much research because I'm actually pretty familiar with most of these albums. So thanks to Bill at Vinylverse for putting it together, and I'd love to hear what you've got to say about my choices, and to see your own videos on your particular responses to these questions. So looking forward to that, and take care and see you soon. Bye.